Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're making Italian stuffed shells. So we're going to start out with a skillet over a medium-high heat, which we are adding to it at least 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a third of a cup of diced onions, and 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. And we're going to cook this for just a couple of minutes to get these onions started cooking and to actually do the same thing with the garlic. However, you want to keep this moving the whole time. We don't want the garlic to sit in one place too long because we don't want to scorch it and we don't want to give it that burnt taste. So move it around as much as you can in the 2 minutes to make sure that everything is cooking, but it's not sitting up shop in one place way too long. And then once we get to the 2-minute marker, we're going to get ready to add in our ground beef. And that way they're all going to cook together. Now mind you, the ground beef is 1 pound of ground beef. We're going to put it in here, we're going to start cooking it, and we're going to start breaking it up because we want this to go into smaller pieces because you don't want really large chunks of ground beef in your sauce when you're doing this. So keep cooking them, turn them over. Your skillet is already going to be hot at this point, so it shouldn't take that long for this to start to cook. And the more it cooks, the more it's going to break down, so that's going to be easier to break it into smaller pieces. But once it starts getting a little brown on the bottom and you start turning around and see that, then you can start moving the onions and the garlic into the ground beef, and that way they're going to start to flavor it as it cooks. And that's really what we want to see this happening, is we want to make sure that the flavor of everything is mixing together, because the onions and the garlic do a lot with the ground beef to give it a lot of flavor and make it taste really great. And that's just the base of what we're going to start out with for this sauce. So we want to cook this until the ground beef is completely browned. And at that point, if you notice you have a lot of oil in your pan, you can go ahead and remove that before you do anything else. So we're adding to this at this point a half a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of pepper. And we're going to mix this through and let it cook. But as I said, once this is mixed up, as you notice there's a lot of oil in your pan, you can remove it before we add any kind of spaghetti sauce to this, because you don't want to have a lot of oil mixed in with your spaghetti sauce, or it'll be kind of a greasy mix and that really wouldn't be that great to eat. So just go ahead, keep chopping this up, keep mixing it until you're completely browned. So this is going to take a couple minutes to do. And then once you get to the point where you're going to put in your spaghetti sauce, you're going to make a decision at this point, because we're using 24 ounces of a spaghetti sauce out of a can jar or whatever. So they have this in lots of flavoring. They have traditional cheese, they have garlic and herb, they have everything else. It's your choice what you want to go with to kind of punch your flavor, because it's going to just add to it. And as you can see, I'm adding mine to mine right now because my ground beef is totally done. I'm adding in my sauce. I'm going to make sure I get all of this out of there. I just used a traditional, but you can use whatever you want to use. And once that's in there, just make sure you get everything you can out of that can. And then go ahead and stir this up, because we want to make sure this sauce gets all over the ground beef. So just go ahead and move it around your pan as best you can. And then we only have like 2 ingredients left to add to this for our sauce. And it's just an amazing sauce, but it's simple. There's really not that much you have to do to it. And I always get a lot of people saying you didn't add what you're just about to do. And I add 1.5 tablespoons of sugar to this. And yes, sugar, because it cuts down on the acidity, but this makes it a little bit on the edge of marinara, but it has such a great taste. So it really will work for this to give it such flavor. So trust me, this is worth it. If you don't want to use the sugar, you don't have to, but it's just something that will help it work. And then after this, I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, and that is it. That's going to bring everything together and have such a great taste, because this will work so well with the cheese and the pasta and everything. It's just wonderful to eat. So, and you can use this even if you were just making spaghetti or something, because it works so well and it's just an easy thing to put together. So now that we have our Italian seasoning in here, just want to stir it up a little bit. Let this simmer for a few minutes. Maybe 3 or 4 is all you really need to do. And then we're going to set this to the side and move on to the next step, because coming up next, we're going to cook the noodles that we're going to use to actually do for the stuffed shells. So, and you're going to be using jumbo shells, so make sure that when you actually have your shells ready to go, that you have jumbo, because they're large shells and they're easy to stuff, but you can get so much inside of them when you're putting the cheese mix into it. So it's worth it to make sure you have the large ones. So as you can see, my sauce is done. It is ready to be set to the side and move on to the next ones, because you want this to cool a little bit before you go to assemble your pan for the oven, because you don't want to end up like having this stuff really all hot and having to deal with it. So we're going to get a large pot. We're going to fill it at least halfway or so with water. Then you're going to add in some oil and some salt, so that way, you know, you're seasoning the shells, but also you're making sure that they don't stick together by putting the oil in. And then you're going to put in the whole 12-ounce box of these, and we're going to cook this for 7 minutes. Now, it's not going to be completely cooked at that point, and it doesn't have to be, because remember, this is going to go in the oven and it can continue to cook in there once the cheese mixes inside of it and then the sauce is all around it. It's just going to have time to do it there. But 7 minutes is enough to get it to the point where we want to use it, and that way once it's there, it's kind of still a little stiff when you go to use these, because we're going to remove the water from them, let them cool for just a little bit of time, and then start stuffing them. You want them to kind of stay firm in a way, because you want to stuff these things without them like closing in on your fingers the whole time you're doing it. So, but one good thing about this is when you go to stuff them, if you hold it the right way in your hand, they're not hard to stuff. You're just going to use a spoon and the noodle and your hand to just stuff it right in there. So let's move on to mixing up the stuff that's going to go inside of the shells. So what we're using here is, I have about 3 cups of cottage cheese. You don't have to use cottage cheese. You can use ricotta. Either way, they both work. That's fine. I just prefer this because I like the texture of it. It's all on what I wanted to use. I'm adding 1 cup of mozzarella cheese to this. And then after that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese and 1 large egg. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this up a little bit and get it completely mixed through here before I add my egg to this, because I want to make sure that I get a lot of this stuff that's all in the bottom mixed through, and then I'm going to add my egg. And then make sure you break open that yolk before you start doing this. We want to make sure it completely mixes through, because you don't want to find out later you had a big old piece of yolk in one corner. And once this is completely mixed together, this is what's going to go inside of your shells. So it's not a hard thing to do here. It's really easy to mix this part up. Now, once we get this done, you need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees, because this is going to be in there for 30 minutes. And I have a 9x13 pan. I'm spraying it with some nonstick cooking spray, because we don't want these things to stick to it. And sometimes, you know, noodles do stick. And then you're going to line the bottom of the pan with the sauce that we already made up. So we're putting a really healthy amount of meat sauce all the way across the bottom of this thing, because you're going to use up the majority of what you have here, but you're going to save some, because we're going to put a little bit over top after we get everything put together. So load it into the bottom, but save a portion of it. So, because really at the end of it, once all of the stuffed shells are in, we're just going to run across the top with some more sauce. So take your shell, take a spoonful of the mix that you have, slide it inside of there, and then just sit it down, and we're going to make rows of these. So just do them one at a time. Take your time doing it, so if anything's hot, you don't burn your fingers. And we're just going to go through it one at a time. And when you get done with this whole pan is going to be filled with these. But as you can see, these things are very easy to stuff at this point, because you literally just scoop it up with your spoon, stick it into the thing, because you're going to use 2 fingers just to open the shell up, stuff the inside, and then set it down and work your way through till you get all of this. And this is where I said that extra sauce is going to come in handy, because we're just going to do maybe like 4 rows or so of this. It's just, you know, you keep doing as many as you want, but just use up the sauce that you have left just to run across them. It just gives a little something on top. And then once this is completely done, we're going to put a tint of aluminum foil over top of this before we put it into the oven, because we want to make sure that the temperature inside stays really warm and it cooks evenly. We don't want to scorch or burn anything on top of here, because, you know, noodles do burn and get hard around the edges, and we don't want to do that. But as you can see, I'm using up all of the rest of my sauce, and when it was done, it looked something like this. And this is such a great meal with such a lot of flavor, and it's something really wonderful to eat. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.